Yeah, I always forget to do that.
Yeah, I did it during the last one, and I'm still kicking myself. It's oh man, I need to put a little post-it note up.
Hmm.
But all right, everybody. So welcome to Friday Night Live, which is our weekly training series for our team. We have special guest here, Nick Ross, joining us. So if you guys don't know who Nick Ross is, someone that I consider my brother, I love this guy. I met him when was Orlando, Nick? It was
March.
March. So immediately I just met Nick in March, but basically how we got introduced was through the company that I got certified through my nutritional studies, which is NCI, which you guys are probably are familiar with by now with how much I talk about them. But I remember traveling to Orlando, and my business coach, my mentor, Jason Phillips, brought me on stage to basically explain to a room filled with whatever it was, 600, 700, 800 people, what my why was. Like, why did I start my own business? Why was I so passionate about helping others? And I remember sharing my story, and I almost broke down in tears because if you guys know me, you guys have been with me for a little while. My whole driving factor, if I had to give it in a 10-second elevator pitch, it would be simply to what is your legacy? Leave a legacy that your family for future generations can be proud of. Because I grew up with three generations of Rodriguez's that didn't necessarily adopt the healthiest of habits. And I saw a lot of things at a very young age that really altered my decision making and my mindset as I turned into adulthood. So when I was surrounded by leaders and wonderful people like Jason, like Nick, like all these other people that I've introduced you to, it really started to get me questioning why was I doing what I was doing and what was my sole purpose. And every single day I've gotten up with the sole intention that I want to be a role model for my wife, for my child, and future children, if God blesses me with it, and leave a legacy that they can be proud of so they don't have to look back and remember a whole lot of painful times in their life. So I am super excited. I shared, let me backtrack. I shared that testimony on stage in Orlando with Nick Ross in the room as part of the NCI staff. And he later pulled me aside at the end of that event, told me how much it moved him. And eventually that really connected us. We connected online. I listened to his story. We shared our stories together. And I was absolutely moved by Nick's story and everything like that. So I knew at some point when the timing was right, when we were perfectly aligned, I had to bring him on here. And if you are joining this call, joining this training, you know everybody tries to seek perfection. We all try to seek perfection with our nutrition plans, our training regimens. We try to lose weight. We try to follow all these perfect diet plans and everything like that. And a lot of the times we end up falling short because we're trying to chase this false idol, this false sense of perfection that nobody is ever going to achieve. So a lot of the times I have conversations with you guys, and it's conversations like, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. And that's why every single week I try to hammer it home with you guys to say, tell me your wins. What were your blessings from this week? We have to slowly start to transition that mindset into something more positive because if we're constantly being influenced by negative thoughts, negative beliefs, negative emotions, it's going to alter the actions that we take moving forward. So that's why it's so important to count your blessings every single day. I'm adamant. Roll out of bed, say 5 blessings, say 5 things that you're grateful for, and that way you immediately start the day off with a win. But without further ado, you guys hear me talk enough every single week. I want to bring on my buddy Nick Ross to share his story, share his testimony, and how he got to where he is today. So hopefully we can go into the weekend with some extra motivation so we can dominate the weekend and dominate our plans moving into the next week. So, Nick, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited to be here. Thanks for taking me back to that moment too, because that was my first NCI event myself, and to watch you go up there and profess in front of a huge audience and a huge room why this was so important to you, why you were so passionate about helping others, just spoke to me, and I'm glad that it's really come full circle 7 months later, and I'm able to give back to your audience. So very glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you, man. So The biggest one, the biggest elephant in the room was if anybody follows you on TikTok, which I highly recommend it, you provide some phenomenal motivational videos that really honestly get me pumped up. But I didn't want to miss this great opportunity where you share your testimony from, you going through cancer treatment and then eventually beating cancer and then moving on to compete in men's physique. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So I wanted to make sure that we give you enough time right out the gate to share that entire time, because you said something in a TikTok video that really moved me and it really got me thinking. Was you started thinking about when you were going through your chemotherapy, all you thought about was one thing, and it was survival. You weren't thinking about bills. You weren't thinking about, cleaning the house. You weren't thinking about the car repairs. You weren't thinking about nothing else. Every single day, you just focused on survival. So, and you later say in your video, what if you took that type of energy and passion and put it towards your goals and put it to something that's going to move you, your family, your loved ones forward? So I just want to dive into a little bit how you develop that mindset, go from, when you were diagnosed with cancer, and tell us the whole story, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for telling me that I'm somehow may have influenced or motivated you. That means the world to me because um, that's I just want to be able to share my story. And it was very, very hard and difficult for me to want to share my story at first because I didn't think it was worthy. I didn't think anybody would care. And at the end of the day, no one does care about your problems. Nobody besides your mama. The only thing that anyone cares about is that you overcame and you rose in the face of adversity. So I'm going to thank you for saying that I'm motivating to you. But I just want to address this, and to everyone else that's listening, I don't want to be your motivation, all right? Because motivation is fleeting. Motivation and enthusiasm are cousins, right? You get real enthusiastic, you get something done. You get really motivated, you get something done. But guess what? That's an emotion. And emotions are fleeting, just like anger, just like happiness. And at the end of the day, you are going to fail way more than you're ever going to succeed. So you better get comfortable with failing and getting back up, and most importantly, getting momentum. That's what I want to be. I want to be able to share my story, maybe just give you a little momentum, that initial inertia. Never undersell the power of inertia, and just daily incremental wins to move forward. And yes, unfortunately, it took me cancer diagnosis at the age of 32 to finally realize that. I heard the saying that I love and I champion everywhere I go, which is every man and woman has two lives. The second one begins when they realize they have just one. And unfortunately, it takes a near-death experience or someone dying that we love or did you hear that Jim had a heart attack and died at 40? Right? And then we go, oh my God, and everyone's got a buzz about it. And, you only get one shot. You only get one opportunity. And unfortunately, like myself, a lot of times we don't wake up until it's too late, or chaos, or bankruptcy, or divorce, or whatever. Chaos could happen in your life for us to waken up. And I just want to be able to share my story, maybe in the hopes and the attempts that, it's never never too late to start, never too late to just get a win, a small win today, and build off that and get momentum to move forward. As far as kind of a background story and how I got diagnosed and how all of that began, just a quick background. I spent 19 years in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania on a 70-acre horse farm. I worked my butt off my whole entire life. Since I was the age of 6, I worked. I'm pretty sure some child labor laws were being broken, but we were a small family, and that's the only way we could survive. We grew up dirt poor on the side of a mountain, and we took care of a lot of horses. I was a great athlete because I realized if I was at practice or playing games, I wasn't working on the farm. And I was in good shape, just farm strength my whole life. Got in love with music and went away to college. And then that's when, just typical things of going to college and hanging out and drinking and saying yes to every occasion and party and celebration just kind of became the way that I would cope with stress. I'm able to, reflect on that now. And what does that type of lifestyle bring? It brings eating out all the time and not preparing your food and spending money that I really didn't have for a really long time, just constantly going out and just always uh, going for instant gratification. And that lifestyle I would describe, because I worked in the music business for 15 years. It's what brought me to Nashville, Tennessee, where I am today. I lived a single bachelor rock and roll lifestyle. That's really the best way that I could describe it. From really the age of 20, about 20 till about 32 for about a 12-year period. And on March 24th of 2016, um, I just wasn't feeling well. Had a really terrible March. Had four wisdom teeth removed. Got the flu. Just wasn't feeling very well. And I went to go see a doctor, just a general doctor, and I got checked out. I had this lump in my throat. I smoked cigarettes for, at that point, 16 years, something like that. And I thought I had cancer in my throat, and I really convinced myself of this. So she just said, no, it's just a back, some kind of infection that you have in your throat from being sick. Here's some antibiotics. I went home, still didn't feel right. And later that night, took a shower. And as I was drying myself off, I felt a lump in a place it shouldn't be on my testicle. And at that point, it's pretty much one of the most helpless, most terrible, gut wrenching feelings of my life. I did what everyone does, is go on WebMD, and that was a terrible decision because I did not sleep. And basically, I just cried all night long. I didn't sleep at all. And then I woke up on a Friday morning and called Urology Associates, which is a network of 40 urologists here in Nashville. And of course, it's Friday in a very busy city, and there were no appointments available. And I remember just crying on the phone with the receptionist, like, whatever you can do, just please find me an appointment. I think I have cancer. And God bless her. I don't know her name, but she went out and did the work and found a young doctor, Dr. Balsante, who was going to forego his lunch and just see me. So I drove down there, got examined, went through the process. They said, we'll call you on Monday. It was Friday afternoon. And from the time I drove from the Urology Associates to my home, my phone rang. And, it's not, now I know it's not very ethical for a doctor to call you and tell you that you have cancer, but that's what happened at that point in time. And they said, you have surgery on Monday. I really didn't have much time to think about it.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So take us through that thought process while you're driving home and he makes that phone call. Like, I couldn't even imagine how you were feeling. Like,
Yeah, I knew as soon as he examined me, just looking into his eyes. Still hard. 5 years later, still gets to me, still chokes me up. Um, yeah, that just goes back to, really understanding your mortality. At that point in my life, I was 32. I had not contributed to society. I would not have been remembered. You know, no one would have blamed me if I had failed at that point in time. I just would have lived up to a lot of people's expectations, which was not really being much of a contributing factor to life. So those are the things that haunt me. It's really, at that point, man, it was really difficult to understand that I had done something to myself to create a cancer cell and something inside of me that wanted to kill me. The very first initial thought that it was that, and it's still very hard for me to admit this, but that I deserved it, right? Because I had done that to myself. I still believe that till this day. Um, you know, I talk and I get on stage and I love to create content, and I say all the time, and this goes for any experience that you might be going through. Cancer did not happen to me; it happened for me. And any painful experience, it doesn't matter what you're going through, you have to be able to reframe that experience. I've gotten into something called neurolinguistics programming. It's what Tony Robbins used to save people from suicide. It could be used in so many different beautiful aspects, but at the end of the day, it's just really high level communication and helping move people from pain to possibility. And one of the core principles to NLP is that experiences have structure, okay? There's no such thing as a negative experience, and there's no such thing as a positive experience. There are only experiences. It is the human being that makes a decision that gives meaning to that experience, whether it is positive or negative. And so obviously getting cancer and the surgeries and the bills and how it affected not just my family, but my loved ones, my coworkers, my company. I mean, you can go on and on and on the amount of people that are affected by cancer by just one cancer patient. Um, and if I would have just chose to frame that negatively or be a victim of my circumstances, I never would have made it through. Never. It was, you know, the most god awful experience of my life. Chemotherapy is not something that I wish on anybody ever.
So what was it that caused that mental switch to occur? Because at this point in your life, you were saying, nobody would have blamed you. You didn't have any aspirations or any big time goals or anything like that. So what caused you from the moment you had that phone call to you obviously had this mental transition that it was like, okay, now I want to do something that's much larger than just myself. Like, take us through that point from the phone call to eventually you had that mental transition.
Yeah, there's a couple really defining moments through that first year of going through cancer, surgery, chemotherapy. My chemo was 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, every other week for 2 months. Most people go to chemo maybe a few hours once a week, a couple times a month. I was there like a shift for work, 40 hours a week. Um, and the really big first event that happened was, you know, you said something like I was only focused on survival, right? And a lot of us take our financial situations as survival, right? So honestly, I was really worried about the bills. It was actually one of the most stressful parts of cancer. And I had no way, even with working for a very large company with good health insurance, it was still an incredible amount of money. And, 5 years of treatments and checkups and CAT scans and MRIs and blood work for another 5 years after that. I couldn't afford it. My mom had to leave her job and come take care of me. I couldn't work, and there was getting no income from that for months. So I was under an incredible amount of financial stress. And, I made this post the other day. I forget exactly what it said, but basically it said, what do you have most help, or what do you have most trouble asking for? And like everyone responded, I have trouble asking for help, right? And I'm the same way. I really don't like to ask for help. And my mom at that point, my family was like, man, you're going to have to start a GoFundMe. Like, we don't know how we're going to get through this. So reluctantly, I did. And within the first 36 hours of putting it up, it had raised tens of thousands of dollars and literally shattered my whole entire worldview. It destroyed any map of this reality that I had. And in that moment, the generosity of others, of strangers, of people who I thought hated me, people who I had made their life a living hell from like high school, right? Like 16 years later, still worrying about those things. They donated. And that fundamentally changed my heart forever. And I remember um, at that moment, I remember sitting at my desk on my computer screen and watching the money pour in and just bawling my eyes out because I didn't think that was possible. And I hit my knees in that moment. And I talk about this a lot. I made a promise to God that I will never break. I won't break this promise for anyone. I would kick loved ones and my own family members out of my life if they asked me to break this promise. And I asked him, man, still 5 years later, stuff's hard to talk about. I asked him, I said, if you give me a second chance at this, if you give me another bat at life, that I will use my few skill sets and my few gifts that you've given me to serve and to help other people. And so if you're really struggling with a goal, if you're really struggling to get somewhere, if you're really struggling to move forward, the quickest thing that you can do is to make the goal bigger than yourself. If you keep failing, if you keep showing up at the doorstep of your goals, it's because that goal was not big enough. That's what you have to realize. It's not that you're not good enough or that you can't achieve it or you don't have the belief to get there. Is that the universe, God, the collective consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is saying that this is not worthy of you. Your goal has to be bigger. And when you make your goal about other people and serving and impacting, your children, your families, your loved ones, the people in your inner circle, when you just choose to impact their lives every day, and that could just be by setting the example, then you will get to where you want to go. Because suffering is me worrying about me. And when I worry about what I want and when I worry about what I'm going through, then I can't solve the problem because I'm thinking about me. So, how can I move forward when I'm constantly suffering? I want to live in a beautiful state. Well, how do I live in a beautiful state? I have to achieve the science. I have to, achieve the science of achievement. And I have to master the art of fulfillment. So you have to succeed. That's a science. There's ones and zeros. You can follow a framework for success and achievement. Fulfillment is an art that's defined on how you want to get your cup filled up. I prescribed to the methodology of serving others. And since I've done that, my whole entire life has changed because I figured out that if I help enough people get what they want, I will eventually get what I want. The universe will provide. Time and time and time, I've seen this proven. But that big moment, that big emotional shift or conscious shift in my life was from the generosity of others and just humbling myself and just being so incredibly grateful. Because I don't know how, even if I would have survived, it would have taken me another lifetime to pay it off, you know? And instantaneously, that stress was gone. It was a miracle. It was nothing short of a miracle.
Right. And thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's difficult even after 5 years, you know, but you said that, now your mission is to give back to others. Can you share that in a little bit more detail? Like, what's your driving factor every single day? Like, how do you give back and serve other people?
Well, first and foremost, you have to wake up. I think we were talking about this before, we hit record or started the stream, which is step one's got to be just filling your heart with gratitude. Like, you have to understand. You asked me what my favorite part of my day was, and I thought about it, and I was like, when I woke up. And I didn't mean that because my day's been great and highly productive. But my favorite part is waking up. Every day you get two amazing gifts, a chance and a choice. What choices are you going to make today with that one chance?
So, what would you ask people listening to this call live or on the replay? They're just struggling to find their why. Like, we hear you saying, do it something for bigger than just yourself, do it for your loved ones, do it for your family. And I have these consultations with parents all the time, and I ask them, what's your why? Like, we break it down to a nutritional level. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Why do you want to lose 50 pounds? Why is that so freaking important to you? How is it going to change your life? And I think, especially since parents are the ones that watch the majority of these videos that we produce, is the automatic response, because we think it's the right response, is, oh, I have to do it for my kids. I think, honestly, and this might trigger a lot of people, that's an auto response. And because that's what society expects us to say. But privately, on a one-on-one call, I tell parents, I'm like, it's okay. You can be real with me. Why do you want to get healthier? Why do you want to live longer? If you go and change your meal plan and go exercise, is your child really your motivating factor? Especially when they start crying and you get peed on and pooped on, and yeah, you're not going to be too happy about, trying to change around your health for them when you're mad at them. And sometimes the majority of the time, I talk to parents and they say, no, okay, you got me. It's not really for my kids. I had a conversation with a mom this week, and I almost broke down in tears listening to her story. And she was like, I want to lose 50 plus pounds because I saw my dad die of a heart attack this year. Like, and granted, he got COVID, but he was diabetic. He had multiple strokes, and still he had sign after sign after sign given to him. And finally, he just ran out of chances.
Your
And
lack, look, your lack of your best hurts everyone that loves you. And if she doesn't lose that weight, then she owes it to herself. And unfortunately, as I said in the beginning of this, people have to die in order for us to wake up. It doesn't have to happen. Every single person listening to this right now could tell a story that would bring us to our knees. You've already lived through the experience. Let alone, it's not just like, so yeah, you want to do it for your kids. Yes. And you're right. That is a very automatic response. But the same parents I will hear time and time again also use the children as a reason to why they can't move forward. So that's being misaligned, right? You know, for me, I want to break generational curses, right? I also want my name and my namesake to be continued. So I got to create the greatest amount of impact I can with the next hopefully 40 years of my life. The average American lives to 78, 3.3 billion heartbeats. I've already used up half my heartbeats. I got to leave something, you know. I don't have two kids, but I have two young, beautiful girls that I look after and that I want to make sure they don't have to go through anything. And I'm pretty damn sure every parent thinks that way and feels that way. But what are you willing to actually do to make that happen? Set the example. Lead from the front.
so
Because
what
at
would
this,
you say
mm-hmm.
what would you say is some questions that parents can ask themselves to eventually take from this call and say, okay, I understand my why? Like, where would
Yeah,
they start?
yeah. So the absolute most important aspect of getting to where you want to go, from pain to possibility, from where you are now to where you want to be, is clarity. You have to get absolutely crystal clear on what you want, right? It's not, oh, I want to make $1 million or I want more money. Well, great, here's a dollar. Get out of here. It's, I want to make X amount of money and by this date, and here are the steps to chunk down the goal in order to get there. If you want to make $1 million a year, you know, we'll use this example of finances. Well, then I need to chunk that down to a month. It's $83,333 a month. Okay, what's that chunk down to a week? It's $21,000 a week. Okay, what does that chunk down to a day? It's $3,000 a day. Getting extreme clarity. Now, when I go to the bank to submit and put the money in, what is the bank teller's name? What is that person wearing? What is her husband's name? What kind of bank is it? Is it a sunny day? Like, you have to get in vision in your mind crystal clear on what you want. Getting what you want is actually very easy. Figuring out what you want is the hard part. So figuring out what you want has to be, one, tied back to every single human being has a few areas of giftedness that we excel in, that brings us passion, that we're engaged in this activity. It fills our cup up. It gives us more excitement and more energy to want to go forward. That could be being the best parent and mother possible. It could be being a great business person or just serving people. But my main way to identifying this is to self-audit. What do you want? Give it evidence criteria. So here's my goal. Here's when I want it by this date. Here are the people that are going to be there with me. Here are my resources that I have to get to that goal. And here are the obstacles in my way. Now, the obstacles give us the questions that we need to ask in order to be prepared to keep moving forward. So if we do hit a road bump or a detour, we're not shaken up. We know what to do. So clarity, writing down your goals. Like, I know this is all like very simple things, but if you listen to highly successful people, however you want to define success, they all say the same thing. Like, one, bring your goals and your dreams into this world, write them down, get crystal clear. Like, I want a house on the beach. I know what it smells like. I know what the house looks like. I know the temperature. I know what the spiral staircase. I know what the feel of the marble feels like, the cold touch. I know everything about that place. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to make that happen, because if I can make that happen, the things that it does to the people in my life that I love motivates me, because the goal's bigger than me, right? So clarity, that is the most ideal. And what is the meaning? Is this the beginning or is this the end? because I treat things completely differently if it's the beginning of the relationship or the beginning of the project or the beginning of the work than if it's the end. So, what is the meaning for the goal? Why is this important to you? Just getting crystal clear. That's where most people fail. Most people will not negotiate for what they want in life. And that's sad. They'll just be silent and not negotiate. You have to learn how to negotiate for what you want. But if you don't know what you want, then how are you going to get there? And if you want to be anything, it's pretty difficult to be anything. Wouldn't you much rather be something and be one thing and do whatever it takes and work as hard and as long as possible to bring that vision to life? That's the most beautiful thing ever, is creating the vision that's in your head. To me, that's like,
that's the fun part.
That's the meaning of life.
Yeah. Now, and you already hinted at it, but I just want to circle back to it, is when the road bumps come, when the curved balls come, obviously going back to your why, going back to your purpose and your mission is a huge piece of getting remotivated or just finding clarity when you're burnt out or you're struggling. What are some other tips when life does smack you in the face? How do you get back up?
Well, what I became frustrated with was breaking promises to myself. That's what, like, I just got so incredibly sick and tired of thinking and saying one thing and then doing another. That creates split personalities. That creates anxiety. That creates a misalignment where you're not actually vibrating in the space that you want to be. Therefore, you don't attract the things that you want in life. You have to be congruent in words, thoughts, and actions. So making promises to yourself. I have a promise, and I have many promises that I at this point refuse to break in my life. But one of the promises I made, to try to give you an example of this, is when I was a young kid, sports was my whole entire life. I was in a really bad car accident. I was in 16. I was ripped out of a car with jaws of life, medevac to the hospital. I don't remember any of it, but it basically ended my any dreams I had of playing D1 college and playing sports. And so, honestly, I forgot my train of thought. Sorry. Back me
Overcoming
up.
the roadblocks.
Yeah. So, I don't even know why I went back to that example. So I apologize, guys. Oh, thank you. Now I remember. So I had made a promise to my mom, my single mom. So my mom had me when she was 18 years old. Dad was never around. Me and mom my whole entire life. And so when I was a young kid, because I wanted to take care of my mom, she's worked her ass off her whole life. I told her, I made a promise to her that I would turn professional, that I would go pro at a sport. And at 16, that dream was taken away. And after chemo, I was like 265 pounds at like 6'1". I had no hair. I didn't recognize myself. Like, I was the most overweight I had ever been because I was getting so much chemo bags every single day. I just like ballooned up. And that's when I made a choice to hire what I didn't even know what the hell it was at the time, an online nutrition coach. I just did it out of recommendation to get healthy. And that turned into bodybuilding. And bodybuilding, like going through a prep, is like almost the closest thing you can get to like going through like chemo treatments. Like the last month of being in prep is god awful. Like every step feels like it's 500 pounds. You're sick, you're irritable, you're cranky, you're hungry constantly. All you think about is just like food. And it's a really difficult thing that I don't want to get through. And the only thing that gets me through that is that promise that I made to my mother when I was a young kid that I still am trying to fulfill at the age of 40, which is turning pro in bodybuilding, which is about the only sport I'm going to go pro at the age of 40. So that is one motivating factor. Like when I hit those roadblocks and I hit the aspect of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do the cardio. I don't want to have to eat chicken for X amount of days in a row. Like, it's, to me, I just go back to that promise and just refusing to break promises that I broke for so long. I just so sick and tired of it. The other aspect is this: like, if you quit, if you give up when things get hard, all you're doing is telling God and the universe is that this is who I am and that this is what I expect for myself. And so that's what you will be rewarded with. And if you want to cut corners and you want to take the path of least resistance, that is not the road to success. That is not the road to living an extraordinary life. It's just not. And then therefore you accept cutting and taking shortcuts in everything else that you do in your life. The condition of your car, the condition of your home, the condition of whatever. It all becomes a shortcut in the path of least resistance. And then your children learn that and continue that pattern, which, by the way, is done by the age of like 5. They've already figured out the frameworks, 3 to 5. So I did that for so long, right? And I say this quite a bit. The change only happens when the current state of pain exceeds the perceived pain of change. So like, I'm certain you're going to change. It's just, when is it going to be? And then is it going to be too late? What does this look like 3-5 years down the road if you continue to do the same things you're doing today? What is the cost of inaction? That will move you forward quicker than valuing losing 20-30 pounds. Like, what if I keep doing this for another 3 to 5 years? Think about that. I don't want that. The doctor said that if I didn't find my tumor when I did, I had 2 months to live. And my survival rate would have been 8-9%. So I personally constantly think about what I would have been doing in those 2 months if I didn't find that tumor. I would have been doing the same dumb shit that I had been doing for the other previous 12, 13 years. That's what drives me crazy. Like, today, just win today. Incremental wins. If you deposit enough small wins day by day, guess what you're going to have? A really large withdrawal, right?
Compound interest.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you so much. This has been very eye-opening, mind-opening, and to say the least. And I have my notepad over here taking notes, and so thank you so much, Nick, for joining us and sharing with us your emotional story and your why and why you decide to do what you do. And just really quickly, I want to honor Angela and Karen for coming on to here. Do you guys have any questions for Nick now that you have him live?
Not that I can think of. I just pulled in the driveway and I've been sitting here listening to the end of it. I can't wait to go back and replay it and really be able to sit and take some notes, because there's some really profound information in there.
Awesome.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that.
Same here. I appreciate everything you said and being so transparent. It's been very transparent with us, and then it's really, it's the truth. It's the truth, and not everybody sees it that way. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I find in the most difficult moments just being authentic, right? Like if I got to get on stage as my first time being on stage, I'm going to let everyone know, like, hey, this is my first time on stage. Like, I'm probably going to mess up and do a bunch of things, but I'm just going to be authentic. And I think that's the most that I could ever provide people when it comes to my story. And I encourage every single person here. All of you, as I said earlier, have a story to share. Someone needs to hear it. And right now, so many people, guys, need encouragement. They need encouragement because some people never had it. They don't know that someone else out there is going through what they're going through. And all of you have experienced that yourself. I've talked to other men from sharing my story and heard just the most profound, amazing stories of perseverance, and nothing even related to going through cancer. Like, we all have our struggles. We all have one or two stories that we've been through. And I had testicular cancers. Like, if we're going to rate cancer, and like the scale of cancer, like, the survivability rates of testicular cancer are pretty high, but not if gone undetected. And most men, it's too late. It's already in all of their organs by the time they go. moving 23 pounds of tumors, one guy told me. So sharing your story, no matter what it is.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. I was going to wrap us up and see if you had any last tips, messages, anything you wanted to share with anybody that sees this video. But I think you already nailed it with the encouragement and just sharing your story. But is there anything else?
Just lastly, man, reframe time. Reframe time. I said earlier, the average American lives to 78 years old. That's 3.3 billion heartbeats in a lifetime. Figure out how old you are. Do the math. How many heartbeats do you have left? Are you wasting those heartbeats, or are you adding to them? And one amazing thing about cardio and fitness and taking care of your body is that when you take care of your body, your resting heart rate goes down. So you gain back heartbeats. You gain back life, right? Now you're going to say, Nick, what about when my heartbeat's going like when I'm working out and doing all the cardio? The math, you're gaining way more when your resting heart rate goes down. So just reframe time. It's not that I got 40 more years to live. It's I got half my heartbeats left. And then when it comes to family, right? And setting the example and reframing time with family, because I know that's important in this community. I see my mother, unfortunately, like once a year. Okay? My mom is 58 years old, so if we're going to use the same math applied, I got on average 20 years left with my mom. That seems like a long time. There's a lot of things that I can do with my mom in 20 years. But if I only see her once a year, I only got 20 more times with my mother. I only got X amount of more times with my grandmother. Just reframe time and use that in everything that you do. Everything, not just loved ones and family, but turning I gotta do this into I get to do this. That's all I got. It's a pleasure.
I love it, Nick. I love you. You know how I feel about you. You're my brother. I love you dearly. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this video with me. I hope somebody got some value out of it. I know Angela and Karen did, and myself. So just thank you so much, man. And until then, I'll see you in December.
Love you too, brother. Thank you so much for this experience. I love how these things come full circle. Can't wait to see you in December. Thank you for everyone that joined the live stream or may watch this afterwards. If you want, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. If you have any questions about just change, moving forward, these are some of my favorite topics. You can find me on Instagram at Nick Ross Speaks _NCI. So reach out, say hello. More than happy to just chat and have a conversation and help you move forward. That's what my life goal is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Or
Good night, everybody.
Bye.